Good morning, Progressive. We'd like to finalize this final session that we're going to do today on Black History Month, hoping we're picking topics that are interesting to you and something that can be a benefit to you. We've had several over the last month, and today we're going to cover a topic that a lot of you may have seen on television. There's a lady by the name of June Esther Griffin Bacon Bursey. We've entitled this particular subject matter, A Breath of Fresh Air. As we've done a series that I entitled Greatness That Lived Among Us, this is one more opportunity for us to learn of someone that lived among us. You know, it's very helpful to know that people have walked in the same path that you've walked, passed by your neighborhood, gone to sometime the same school that you've gone to, and have gone on to do great things. There's something about that makes us feel inspired that we can do the same thing. And that's one of the benefits of sharing history. It allows us to be able to visualize ourselves in those same situations as these people that were being respected today. So we're going to cover a little bit about June Bacon Bursey, A Breath of Fresh Air. Next slide. June Bacon Bursey was a pioneer for women in the meteorology subject matter. And interesting enough, she was from Wichita, Kansas. She was a graduate of East High in 1947. You can see her in the midst of her classmates to the far left there. She went by as her maiden name, June Esther Griffin. And she went through some of the same paths that we do every day. Next slide. She had a Wichita connection. I don't know if you remember last Sunday's presentation I made on the beautician schools. Her aunt was a lady who was involved with the community, Bessie Holbrook. Now, June Bacon Bursey was born as, again, the name is June Esther Griffin, October the 23rd, 1928 in Wichita. As I mentioned, she graduated from Wichita East High in 1947. Her aunt, Bessie Holbrook, moved to Wichita in 1930 from Michigan. And she spent a lot of time with her aunt and growing up. Now, Mrs. Holbrook was a member of the Episcopal Church, and that particular church she joined early in her career was St. Augustine, which I don't know if you all remember that was at 9th and Wabash. It was called the Blue Vein Church because people of lighter complexion, for some reason, the black community were also members of that. But anyway, she became an Episcopalian in her growing up, and then Mrs. Holbrook, for some reason, chose to expose June to the Catholic Church. And that was against kind of the family's desires, but it happened anyway. She also went on beyond high school and graduated from Friends University after she finished high school. And one of the reasons she went to Friends, obviously, was to complete education, but because of her particular interest in meteorology, she could not get a degree in Wichita. So we find her satisfying that in another location. Next slide. Here's an image of her getting married at the St. Mary's Cathedral. I don't know if you know, on Broadway and Central on the southeast corner there. This happens to be the marriage she had with Mr. Bacon. You'll hear later on from her daughter, who is the offspring of that couple, Gail, who will tell you a little bit about her mother and her aspirations to be a meteorologist. Next slide. As you can see there, East High, graduate 1947. She went on to Friends. Because of her desire to go into meteorology, she had to go to another university. She matriculated from the University of California, Los Angeles, where she got her degree. Also the University of Southern California. Some of the fields of study that she prepared herself for, which is very critical, and we'll see the need, how that became important in her life later on. Meteorology, radar meteorology, aviation meteorology, and weather forecasting, some of the subjects that many of us probably not even heard about. The institutions that embraced her and that she became a part of the National Weather Service. She worked for Sperry Rand Corporation, National Broadcasting Company, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And this is where it becomes really interesting in her life. You know, we often use the term in secular world, luck. And then luck is sometimes considered in the secular world where preparation meets opportunity. And such a thing happened to her. And it makes me think about really our religious experience, how God always prepares us and makes it possible that when opportunity occurs, things happen, great things happen. In 1971, June joined WGR-TV as a news reporter, in which role she covered a subject matter in 1972. I don't know if you all remember those that can, the Attica prison riots, which were in New Jersey area in 1972, and that gave her some notoriety into the public as far as a broadcaster. When the station's on-air meteorologist was arrested for robbing a bank, she was made his replacement. Again, preparation, opportunity. She didn't ever know in her career after graduating that place where she was going to be working, the guy who was doing the weather was going to rob a bank. So therefore, there was immediate need of having someone that was prepared, had preparation, and was ready to go. She raised her hand. And that's how it started happening for her. She also had a situation. She was involved with the contest called the $128,000 question, which in 1977, in which she won $64,000 in this contest. And she chose, and I want you to pay attention to some of the events that we've talked in the other times about other people. She chose to use that money not for herself, but she created a scholarship for young women interested in atmospheric science administration by the American Geophysical Union, known as the AGU. Bacon Bursey served with the AGU's Committee on Women and Minorities in Atmospheric Science and co-founded the American Meteorological Society's Board of Women in Minorities. Increasing the participation of African American women in meteorology and geophysical science was a major focus of Bacon Bursey. In 1978, she published an analysis of African American meteorologists in the United States. Now keep in mind, she's not only the first African American to receive a meteorological degree, she's also the first woman to be a broadcaster with meteorology on television. So two firsts. In 1978, she published an analysis of African American meteorologists in the United States. Beginning in 1979, Bacon Bursey spent nearly 10 years as a chief administrator for television weather activities known as NOAA, and worked on a number of other projects during that year. Now I'm going to take you to a website. You're going to hear the story of her daughter named Gail. She's going to tell you a little bit about her mother. And when you hear that, too, you want to make sure you pay attention to what inspiration this lady had on her daughter.
American woman to receive a degree in meteorology and as America's first female on-camera meteorologist. Look at her here, and I just love the graphics as well, right? She had to draw
graphics
right as she went. This is amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, well, today, June is 86 years old. She can't join us this morning as she was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia, but her daughter, Dale St. Clair, is joining us to talk more about her mother's career. Dale, so good to talk with you. Thank you so much for joining us, and we love to share your mother's story. Tell us about your mom. What drove her, especially to be a scientist?
My mother was very passionate about meteorology and passionate about, frankly, bringing meteorology to the air, and worked, as you know, at the Atomic Energy Commission, the NOAA, and then had the privilege of going to WGR as their first on-air meteorologist.
What were some of the influences, and what did a prison riot have to do with her getting her big break?
Prison riot is what actually gave her first break in terms of going national. She went to WGR as a reporter. She didn't get she applied for meteorology spots, frankly, all over the country, got her break in TV as a reporter. In the Attica prison riots brought her to the air nationwide. And after the meteorologist robbed a bank shortly after at WGR, she raised her hand and moved to television, and that was, frankly, probably the pinnacle of
Get out!
Of
the meteorologist robbed a bank?
The meteorologist before my mom, exactly.
Yeah. That is
robbed a bank.
wild.
My mother always said, chance favors the prepared mind. Had been preparing for this for, frankly, almost 20 years
incredible.
before she actually got on the air.
And it's a common theme, too. I mean, she raised her hand. She was ready to go. She was like, yes, I'll be the TV meteorologist. And she did a great job. She went on to work for NOAA and to work for the National Weather Service as well. But do you know what got her start in meteorology? Was it a teacher? Was it a big weather event? What got her started in weather?
Passion, frankly, about math and engineering, and passion about the weather. She always loved the atmosphere and the skies, and used to look up as a child and wonder kind of how all that came to be when it came to weather, and just curiosity. Which is why she's a great scientist. She was always curious, always passionate, always persistent about everything that she did.
We all had that. It seems like that seems to be a running theme with all of us meteorologists, right? You know, what was her favorite weather to report on? Did she favor snow or hurricanes?
Oh, she favored the lake effect, because as you know how predictable that is, right? That was why she loved it, because it wasn't.
Can you tell us the story? I understand that she won at some point a game show. She won a big sum of money on a game show and then went on to start a scholarship?
She did. The $164,000 game show, she won $64,000 with John Philip Sousa as her topic. She always wanted to pave roads for women in meteorology, and then she used that to start a scholarship to do so, that big chunk of money. Preparing for that was along the lines of how she prepared for everything. She studied hours and hours and hours Sousa, which was her passion. I helped her with the note cards, and the result was a scholarship, but that's how she approached everything with preparation.
You know, what advice did your mom give you growing up? And, you know, what advice do you think she wants to get out to other young women?
The advice my mom gave, and quite honestly, she's my role model daily. I remember her every day, is preparation and persistence continuously. And I follow that in my career. I think, you know, no is another opportunity to find the yes. And that no, as she raised me, is not in our vocabulary.
I love that. That's perfect. It really is a perfect way to live your life. What do you think her legacy is going to be?
I hope her legacy is that there really is no barriers to anyone, whether it's race, gender, that in fact, if you are prepared to achieve and do anything, then that opportunity is there for you to take. And no, she was told not to be a meteorologist when she was 12 years old, and consistently through school until she got into other things. So no is just people don't understand, they're not educated in terms of what you're achieving, and it's just not an obstacle. The only obstacle is yourself. Is yourself. Exactly.
Just, you know, curious, did you go into any sort of math or science, or that just wasn't your thing?
I did, actually. I was in the National Science Fairs nationwide, mechanical engineering, and I ended up in financial engineering, and now I'm helping run a financial innovation company, Park Avenue Finance. So a different type of science.
Yeah, but still.
The persistence, the hard work, the preparation, everything. Dale St. Clair, thank you so much.
Yeah,
June Esther Griffin was married to Walter Bacon Jr. and John Bursey. She had two daughters, Dawn, Marie, and Dell, who you just heard. June died under hospice care in Burlingame, California, from frontotemporal dementia on July the 3rd, 2019, at an age of 90. Her death was announced about 6 months later. Now, as we sum up all these things we've been talking about, these are some of the things I like to leave behind. The importance of history. That is just not something we're doing here, but we hope to leave something that will help us all. Greatness that lived among us. Obstacles of life don't determine our success in life. Education, the more the better, whether formal or informal. Learning about other things is critical. Being involved in your community is critical. Giving back to inspire others to achieve is critical. Know your history and teach your children about history as well as other adults. The subject matter I covered this month, A.Z. Taylor Morton, lived in Wichita from 1967 to 1971. became the Treasurer of the United States, the only Treasurer of the United States who was African American in 1977 to 1981. Dr. H.N. Sims, who was a dentist in town, built a dream house at Minneapolis and 17th Street. He did it to employ other black artisans who would not have an opportunity to use their skills as plumbers, roofing, contractors, and gave opportunity for them to do something for their families. Last week we covered Madam C.J. Walker, an inspiration to beautician schools in Wichita that inspired entrepreneurs to start their own salons so that they could in turn hire people, inspire others, beautify, if you will, the community with the services that they provided. And today we covered June, Esther, Griffin, Bacon, Bursey, who chose to do not only something for herself, but to reach out to others to provide service in the future for others by having scholarship. You may be the next greatest that lived among us. Any of us could be. Consider all you do is critical, no matter how small you think it is, to the community in which you reside. We are all the sum of our parts. No man or woman is an island. No man stands alone. I tell you at this point that we cannot change the past, but we can control it. Active role in our present, utilizing all the assets that God has given us, whether it be our money, our talent, even our kind words. It gives us the ability to do the right thing. If you see your neighbor kid, a boy or a girl, doing good in school, encourage them, for they may be something that's important that you've had something to do with. Sitting next to a member at the church that is having issues, trials and tribulations, you may be able to help them in the success of their future. Investing in our church's effort to do more things not only inside the church, but outside the church, outside these walls, to help our neighbors of the community. Not just someone that we can see across the street, but a neighbor, someone that you walk into the store and see, on your job, at your home. You know, Jesus was one approached one time about, who is my neighbor? And the Pharisees asked that question hoping that he would exclude somebody that they didn't like, somebody of a different ethnicity, someone that was different in terms of their sex, someone that was different in terms of what they look like. But this is how he answered it to make sure that they were caught. He says that anybody's your neighbor that has a need that you can fulfill. Everyone has an opportunity. You cannot escape from that, so all people can be a part of us. In our future, in all of our futures, will be literally judged by our past. And we can control our past by what we do here in the present, to include all people, to experience all things, to assess and do initiatives that add value to the world. Events in history may change, they may be delayed, they may be hidden, but history itself does not change. Your history you make is literally in your hands. I have as a final thing, I just want to emphasize, have an original document. This was a document that is history. It is a document I'm going to read to you. The person that is in here had no idea that I was going to be reading this 200 years ago, but I am. Maryland, Frederick County, to wit. This was filed in the courthouse. On the 3rd day of May, 1823, before me, the subscriber and trustee of the place for said county, personally appears Benjamin Biggs of said county, and make oath on the holy evangel of the Almighty God that Negro Rachel, age 15 years, in September 1811, and that she was manumitted, set free by Elijah Williamson, to be free on the 26th day of September 1822, sworn to before Isaac Months. Now, this is history that doesn't change, but the only reason that it is here is it was once hidden, and I bring it to our forefront. This is what we do by helping each other realize the importance of each other. And today's present may be tomorrow's history. We hope you've enjoyed everything, and